Welcome back to He's a Giant. Finally back to He's a Giant, a pod about all things college football and all things Giants football. I am your tardy host, Sal, with my other tardy host, Monty. What's up, man?
What's going on, dude? Yeah, we're back. We got some interior offensive line this week. And yeah, we have some a few positions coming up to end this year, and I think you guys are going to be really excited about this. A lot of big positions of needs for the Giants coming up, starting with interior offensive line today.
I got to get the message out to everybody quickly. Did you send anything out?
I'll do it right now.
Yeah, we're gonna go live. Tell your friends, tell your friends. We are back live. I'm gonna put this out real quick.
Okay, sounds good. But yeah,
Uh,
so yeah, we're back. We Sal and I went over the interior offensive line this week, and it's an interesting group to look at. I mean, I think last year was definitely a more impressive all-around offensive line class, but there's definitely some names here, and there's definitely some guys I think that fit well with the Giants. We'll get into it, and then we'll talk some Giants stuff first. But yeah, I'm excited to break these down with you.
it's a good group. I think it's not. I don't think it's as good as it could have been if we had taken somebody last year. But it's still there are some interesting guys here who actually meet the Giants' needs, which is interesting because I think when you consider what the Giants are going to be looking for to add in the interior O line, then I actually feel like this group makes me feel better because there are some guys who have the kind of versatility that you and I have talked about in the past. I think we still need that personally,
Mm-hmm.
but we can definitely get into that. Before we go into all of that stuff, let's talk about what's going on with the Giants. We haven't been on for a few weeks. Um, since we last had our episode, a lot has happened. The end of the Daniel Jones era, namely, or the Giants
Mm-hmm.
after the loss to the Carolina Panthers in Germany decided to finally, after the bye week, bench Daniel Jones, make him, we don't have to go through it. Everybody knows it already, make him the whole fiasco, making him third string, then fourth string, then him, even though it's not a big deal, having the optics of him in the open session with the media standing there like an orange cone on offensive installs as a safety look
Mm-hmm.
really bad. I've never personally seen a player who's about to be cut get a chance to do a farewell speech like he's Lou Gehrig,
Yeah.
to
Mm-hmm.
the Giants world, and then the next day, John Mara of all people releases the press release statement about how he has granted Daniel Jones's release. Strange day. Daniel Jones ends up on the Vikings, still on their practice squad, I believe, but he's going to get to learn, I guess, from Kevin O'Connell for the last several weeks of the season, which is not necessarily a
Mm-hmm.
bad thing for him. But we've rehashed this in other forums. But let's talk about this, like big picture. Where are we as an organization right now, and where are the Giants headed?
Yeah, man. I think you're starting to see why the Giants put off, making this Daniel Jones decision for so long, because we made this decision, and you saw as soon as we had a bad game how fast this thing flipped. There was no more blaming Daniel Jones. Immediately, he was the guy that was really kind of the scapegoat. Not that he didn't deserve it, but was a scapegoat for him. Kind of got thrown away, and it seems like the fans turned on Joe Shane and Brian Dable really quickly. I know, like, Talking Giants were putting out a poll a few weeks ago about if we thought Dable and Shane should stay, and I was shocked how many people were still like, no, they got to keep. I think it was like 70-80% or something. And then the Athletic did a poll this week. I think it was basically opposite. It was like 70-80% were saying that they have to go. And everything we're hearing, it seems like at least Dable's like pretty much gone unless he completely saves the season. So, I mean, I think that's what we're looking at right now. I think this just season has gone predictably, like terribly. Like you went in with no quarterback, and like you basically banked the entire season on Daniel Jones, and unshockingly, he didn't, become a new player. So here we are.
Yeah,
At least the injury clause didn't kick in. Could have been worse.
yeah. I mean, to that end, as far as
Yeah.
we know, the injury clause issue was one that, I mean, if you believe, you know, the the surviving brother of the deceased formerly Pretty Ricky, you know, who communicates with his brother via Ouija board. Is what my understanding. The Giants apparently did kind of, try to fuck around. They might find out with the when it comes to the injury clause. I mean, if you believe some of the rumors circulating, they approached Daniel Jones and said, "Hey, you want to stay starter? Get rid of the injury clause." That's a big no-no. Like considering the what happened with Russell Wilson last year with the Broncos. But if you believe that story, the Giants did that. Jones thought about it, and his agent said, "No effing way, you're not gonna do that." And that was that.
Yeah, I mean, and Daniel Jones basically confirmed it too. They asked him about it, and he was like, "Yeah, there's something to that. We're not gonna get too into it, but he's like, yeah, there was like discussions between my agents with that."
We have a celebrity in our midst. We should probably show his message to everybody here. Ladies and gentlemen, Bill Belichick is joining us. Coach Bill, thank you. He's gonna go get us some hog mollies.
Future giant.
Future giant hog mollies, future Coach Bill.
Oh
We
God.
look forward to seeing you, Bill. Bring your girlfriend. So yeah, man. The whole fiasco is I don't know if the story on this is done. Unfortunately, I think for the Giants, there may be. If they really did flirt with danger with that injury clause stuff, we may hear more about it later. But I think at this point, Daniel Jones has moved on. The Giants have to move on. But yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, we kind of predicted this because it wasn't that hard to predict before the season. Like, if you don't go into the season with better options than Tommy DeVito and Drew Lock, you're cooked. You're
Hmm.
banking your season on guys who cannot save it. And here we are at 2-10, and they're like playing like these stupid games about who's the starter. Is it Drew Lock? Is it Tommy DeVito? And the answer is nobody gives a shit because they both suck. And then the whole season looks dead. So they went into this. They could have had Russell Wilson. They could have drafted a quarterback at pick six. They could have had JJ. They could have had Penix. Hell, they could have had Bo Nix. I mean, we weren't huge on taking Bo Nix at six. I don't think anybody was really.
Hmm.
But for people who want to say that, like, I don't think nobody. And I don't think people really wanted Nix at six. But
Yeah, I think those
whatever.
people who had Knicks as their QB4, but those people were still kind of like where we were as like a back end first rounder for him.
Right. Um, Whatever. You didn't get a solution in the building that's viable, that's acceptable to the fan base. Now you're living with your own decisions. It's gonna be a long man. There's 5 games left. 5 games of this shit. Like this is gonna be a long run with Dexter Lawrence hurt and gone for the season. With now Theo Johnson looks like he's done. Every guy's injuries are piling up. I think this week game we're expecting Josh Azudu and Chris Hubbard to be the starting tackles going into the game. Like this has disaster written all over it. And it's just hard to see a win in the last 5 games. I mean, I think they're headed for. I don't know about you, but I think they're headed for 2-15.
Yeah, I think for me the nail, and I wouldn't surprise me if we pulled out one more win. It just kind of happens, but the nail in the coffin was Dexter Lawrence being out for the season. He is so important to this team. If they were going to pull out a win, it was going to be about Dexter Lawrence just being one of the most dominant players in football, and we don't have that anymore. He's truly our best player, and our second best player is also hurt in Andrew Thomas. So it's going to be hard to win without a team that really feel like leans on some of their superstar players to be a little bit better than their roster should be.
Yep, I agree. It's going to be a ride to the end. I personally, my prediction is at this point. I know that there are a lot of people in the media spinning this narrative like they're going to be back. They deserve to be back. There are a lot of people who want to see them back. I think you and I discussed this a lot, but going into the draft, that if they don't take a quarterback in this class and they have another bad season, it would be really dangerous to let Shane and Dable come back for year four with their
Yeah.
backs to the wall, needing to take a quarterback. That's asking to recreate what the Bears have done 3 times now, which is always disastrous, which is handing a young first round quarterback to a regime that's basically on the brink of being fired. That's not good process. People are using the word process. That's horrific process. It's actually ironic to me that the people who use the word process to defend Shane the most are the ones who ignore that this is bad process. This is the worst process. You don't want
Yeah.
to do that. So I personally think, man, I don't care what anybody says. I think these guys are gone at the end of the season. I just can't imagine John Mara wants to live through another disastrous situation like they had with Jones when he started.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think it's one of those things where, look, even if you still have belief in Joe Shane and Brian Dable, it's kind of like with Joe Judge. Like John Mara still liked Joe Judge. He still believed in Joe Judge, but he understood that forcing Joe Judge on a new GM didn't make any sense and it was bad process. And it's going to be similar where it's like if you're not committed to these guys, you don't want to force their quarterback on a new head coach GM. Just bring them in now, let them pick it. And there's good candidates out there, man. There's guys who they can bring in and talk to. I don't think these guys are irreplaceable, even if you like them. But
We'll have to do an episode, and we will on who
yeah,
we would want. But
especially if we once these guys get fired, we definitely
yeah,
do it.
but
Um,
before we jump into the episode about the interior alignment, I think it's worth discussing a couple of things you and I have been talking about. You especially have been battling for your life on the timeline for the with this issue,
oh
but
my god, I
so
couldn't believe
so I
that.
just want people to know I mean I like watching Monty get cooked on the timeline. That's always entertaining to me. But he's right.
I
You're
couldn't
all wrong.
believe that reaction was so
So
much
so
like
the
that.
the background for those who don't know is there is clearly something happening in San Francisco. Like what there is some real smoke that the Kyle Shanahan tenure with the 49ers is potentially one that could come to an end at season's end. Um, for those who don't know, Jed York, the owner of the 49ers, is a bit of a loose cannon. This is the same man who drove Jim Harbaugh out of town, even though Harbaugh took him to a Super Bowl and immediately turned them around from the laughing stock they had been before they got there. He's kind of a I do it my way kind of dude. Shanahan is a control freak himself. This is not going to go well if they start butting heads. And the crux of the matter is that it's the end of year three for their quarterback Brock Purdy, who's not having a really good year, Mr. Irrelevant. And the question is, do you pay Brock Purdy? Because paying Brock Purdy, as Giant fans know, is expensive for a quarterback. You're probably talking over $50 million a year. You know,
Yeah,
do they
maybe
want to commit
60.
him? Yeah, maybe 60, because that's really the mark right now. Do the Niners want to do that, or do they want to say, no way, we're not doing this? If they don't commit to Brock Purdy this offseason, or they signal they're not going to pay him, I think Kyle kind of knows, like, hey, man, what's going on here? They may be getting ready to like undo this thing. Does he want to be part of it? Probably not. There's at least a chance that Kyle becomes available. Now, he is not a free agent, and nobody in their right mind would just fire Kyle Shanahan. The most logical thing is if they say we're going to not pay Purdy and we're going to start tearing this thing down with some of our vets and start trading guys, and Shanahan says that's cool, I don't want to be part of it, they may work out a deal where Shanahan finds the team he wants to go to. That team would then have to trade for him to the Niners. And the 49ers don't have to accept the deal. But so it's going to be expensive. Kyle Shanahan is one of the best coaches in the NFL. I don't care what you think about him in terms of his performance in the final moments of Super Bowls. He is one of the best coaches in the NFL. So Monty put out there a tweet about how he would give up the first round pick this year for the Giants, which
Yeah,
looks like it's going to be a top three pick for Kyle Shanahan. I'm
wouldn't
not
look back.
sure. Yeah, and people went crazy. Now, I don't think that would be necessary, but I understand where Monty's coming from. I
Yeah,
don't think you would need to give up a top three pick for Kyle, but would I give up a first round pick for Kyle? Yeah, in a heartbeat. I would give
yeah.
up the 2026 first round pick for Kyle.
And I'll say, look, like obviously I'd give up less if I could give up less, but basically the question is like, what would you give up? What's the most you give up? And I'm like, it's like I would dangle that first, and I wouldn't think twice about it because look, you really can't trade a top 5 pick for a head coach. It's like, okay, would you rather Kyle Shanahan or Kayvon Thibodeau right now? Because like, and he hasn't been a bust either. He's just been fine. Like there's like people I think all it's don't get me wrong, we're draft guys. I love the draft. You love the draft. Our listeners love the draft. People overvalue draft picks. At the end of the day, Kyle Shanahan would bring more to this organization than any top 5 pick unless you hit an absolute home run on a quarterback. And is it possible that one of these quarterbacks could be that? Sure, but they're not like these aren't quarterbacks that are like rare right now. These are quarterbacks that, as far as prospects go, I mean, we're gonna spoiler alert, we're gonna dive into quarterbacks in these next couple weeks, so get ready, guys. But from what I can see, these are pretty ordinary prospects. Doesn't mean they can't hit and be that, but like you can say that about any year. You can't do that. You can't get a Kyle Shanahan and every year. And there's the points of like, it's like, well, he's good because he has a good front office and they've built an all pro team. It's like, do you know who develops those players and made them all pros? Him and his coaching staff they hired. You know who hired that front office? Kyle Shanahan, who hired John Lynch because his relationship with Mike Shanahan, who hired Adam Peters because his relationship with Mike Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan orchestrated that entire rebuild of San Francisco. He is the mastermind behind all of that. So, like, no, I would not value a random top 3 pick over Kyle Shanahan. Like, if I don't have to give that up, great. But like, Kyle Shanahan is invaluable. He's invaluable, and I wouldn't hesitate if that's what it costed.
Now, before people lose their mind, let's take a step off the ledge. You're not going to get Kyle Shanahan if you have to give up your top three pick because Kyle Shanahan won't want to come to you if you give up your
Yeah.
top three pick. So, in reality, if there was a world in which Kyle became available and dangled by the Niners and the Giants could pique his interest, he's not going to let them give up the top three pick to get him. He's going to say, give
Yeah.
up something else. So, what would realistically have to go is maybe your second round pick or next year's first, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that for Chicago. Would I give that up for him? I see people saying categorically, you can't trade picks. That's crazy. Because let me tell you what you're getting. Let's just say, for argument's sake, it's the 2026 first round pick and throw in a pick this year, like a fifth round pick or something, right? Like some sort of filler this year plus a first for next year. What you're going to get for that, in theory, is you're going to get Kyle Shanahan, one of the top coaches and potentially the best offensive mind in football. I think McVay can make a run for that, but he's right up there. You're almost certainly going to get Rob Sala as his defensive coordinator at this point because he's out there as a free agent essentially. And I think it makes sense for Rob to go with Kyle to wherever Kyle goes, be his DC, build his stock back up. So there's a real chance you get both of them. You will get the general manager that Shanahan wants to bring in to help build up the roster. That might be a guy like Brandon Brown. We'll get into that in another episode because Jim Harbaugh wanted him. So he's obviously respected as somebody who can work with an experienced coach by some people, at least. Might be somebody else, but you're going to get a GM that knows how to build with Kyle and you're going to get the culture change that the Giants badly need, right? You need someone to take control of this organization and create a major cultural change. They badly need it. So you would get your head coach, who's a premier head coach. You'd probably get a premier DC. You'd get the right GM with him. You'd get the culture shift. And oh, by the way, he's now going to pick his quarterback immediately. He's going to take one of Shador Sanders or Cam Ward, almost certainly, with that first pick, and that the Giants have. So so I just gave you your premier head coach, a great defensive coordinator, a whole new GM, a new culture, and your franchise quarterback. And all I gave up was a 2026 first round pick. Are you still against it?
And look, and think about it this way too. Kyle Shanahan, they traded 3 first round picks, totally fucked up on Trey Lance, totally fucked it up, and then it went to the Super Bowl.
Didn't matter.
So didn't matter. So like, no, like and look, but if people, and I understand if people's arguments they just don't like Shanahan because they think he's a joker and whatnot. I don't totally think, like, I think some of that's fair, but at the same time, just get me to the dance and you have a shot. Like, he's had a shot in basically all those. Just because he didn't pull through doesn't mean like you don't want to be there, because anytime you're there, you have a shot to win. I get if people are nervous about that type of stuff, but I'm personally not worried.
Let's just do the exercise then. If the Giants were able to get Shanahan, let's say again, let's use my price of a 2026 first and like a mid round pick this year, right? Which I think is about the price. And Kyle said, you know what? I do want to go to the Giants. I want to get my quarterback in the draft right away. I think I see enough pieces there that I can work with. And he brings a guy like Salah, and I don't care who the GM is at that point, right? It could be Brandon Brown, whoever, right?
Yeah.
Y- Year one, what's the Giants' likely record with that change?
Yeah. Probably like 8, 9 wins.
Year two with Kyle Shanahan, so the 2026 season, what's the Giants' record most likely? What's our range then?
10 to 12, probably.
Right. That's a Super Bowl contender.
Yep.
If you're at 10 to 12 wins by year two, at that trajectory, you've now acquired talent. You have your quarterback.
As long as
Theoretically,
you
you
got
have a
as
quarter.
long as the right quarterback works, but he's been pretty damn good at making the quarterbacks work.
Let's assume for a second he wants Shador Sanders, right? Or he
Mhm.
wants Cam Ward, and he's like, I can work with this guy. Takes him, gets 2 years with that guy. By the end of the second year, you're like a 10 to 12 win team in the playoffs with Shanahan and Salah. Probably some of those really good Jet players want to come and join us, for Salah, because
Yeah,
who clearly was not the problem with the Jets, right? The players basically revolted and fell apart once he left. You're a Super Bowl contender by the end of the second year. What other coach is doing that for you with this situation? So again, would you not give up a 2026 first round pick for that? And I'm putting it out there. It's a thought exercise. I don't think you would give up that first round pick this year only because I don't think he would come if you gave up that top three pick.
but if I
But
had to and he's still come, I would do it.
yeah, I mean, I think that's the point, right? Like he's worth a lot more than just one pick.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I do think that if he becomes available, Monty, I think I really feel like he may end up in Chicago.
yeah.
Chicago to me is the logical landing spot for Kyle. And I've been saying this for like a while now on spaces. Like, watch this space. Ryan Poles just fired Matt Eberflus. They have a really, really good defense. They need a couple of pieces, but really they've assembled a nice defense. They have Caleb Williams. They've got, Roma Dunze, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, who needs to stop committing stupid penalties, but still a good player. They need to load up their line a little bit, but what they need are little things to tinker around the roster. They're ready to win, and what they didn't have was a head coach. And now Ryan Poles has been told, you need to get your coach right or you're gone too. And if I'm Poles, if this guy becomes available, I'm shipping off this year's first right away for Kyle Shanahan. I'm saying, take it, please. Give me Kyle Shanahan. Maybe I lose some power here, but if I can make Kyle Shanahan want to work with me, I'm secure for the next 10 years. I'm going to be winning forever, just like John Lynch is, right? It's job security for the GM, it's winning for the organization. I think that I can see Kyle landing in Chicago. I think that's the most likely spot.
I think the one thing though is, does he want to work with Ryan Poles in a situation with the Giants? Potentially, he could bring his own GM, which is,
He could pick his GM.
one name I threw out. We'll move off the subject. We've gone into a pretty deep, and we'll talk about in the future. One name I throw out is a guy like Rick Smith, who he
Hmm.
worked with forever in Houston. Worked with Gary Kubiak, who he got his start under. Rick Smith started as a coach under Mike Shanahan, then got moved to the front office under Mike Shanahan. He was a very successful GM, but left football because his wife got cancer. His wife unfortunately passed away, and he has not returned to football yet, but was something that he has shown desire to do, just has not done yet. So maybe that could be something to
Yeah.
keep an eye on, even if it's not here. Something to keep an eye on with him, I think.
And I'll throw in my plug. I know it's not a popular one nowadays, but I have been in the camp of we should seriously give thought to the idea that Brandon Brown might be the guy. And my argument for this is very simple. John Mara does not want radical change. He hates it,
Hmm.
right? What does radical change mean? I don't think it means firing the head coach and the GM. I think it means gutting entire departments of scouting and front office, right? And completely disruption. Well, the one good thing Joe Shane has done since he came here is he has actually assembled a pretty good team in the
Right.
front office. Brandon Brown was highly respected before he got here. Um, Ryan Cowden, Chris Rossetti. There have been some really solid people added to the front office,
Dennis
with just
Hickey.
Dennis Hickey. So if you just say the executive made bad choices, obviously I'm not saying Shane did everything unilaterally, but I mean I think at the end of the day he's the GM. He makes the final call. One acceptable scenario to Mara to clean house might be you get rid of Dable, you get rid of Shane, you promote Brown because he is somebody who would allow you to keep a lot of the good parts of the infrastructure in place with a new executive making the decision. Why would I consider Brown? Well, other than he's a respected person in the league before he got here, he nearly got the Chargers job as GM, where Jim Harbaugh almost picked him over a guy who was a shoo-in for the job in Joel Ortiz. Now Ortiz got the job, but Brown took it right to the end, much like
Hmm.
Adam Peters took Joe Shane to the end. So there's clearly a level of respect around the league for him, especially from his days as a scout. I think a lot of people talk about that. I think Harbaugh talked about how he knew him as a scout. He's a Long Island kid from Huntington, went to St. Anthony's Prep. He went to Fordham undergrad, played DB there. goes to law school, gets a JD, breaks into scouting after that. Where did he get his start as a scout? Boston College. Okay, spends a few years at Boston College, works his way up the ranks, goes through the scouting levels at Indianapolis, works his way up, goes to Philly, works his way up, and then to the Giants. You forget the name. If I just gave you that timeline of a resume, you would say that man is a giant, right? That's a
Yeah,
Giants executive. So he has the pedigree. He has everything. He does also from Hard Knocks up here to have a great working relationship with Tim McDonald. They're everywhere together. They're talking all the time. Mara seems
yeah,
to trust him. Tim McDonald matters because Tim McDonald is going to be the president and CEO of the Giants in the not so distant future. I mean, I don't know when John Mara is going to retire, but he's 69 years old. I'm sure he'll do it as long as he can. But McDonald will, I think, year over year, will continue to take on a larger role and will eventually inherit that role. If you have a good relationship with Tim McDonald, that means you have a general manager who can manage the owners, which is very important with the Giants, who has a good relationship with them. So I think we should give this some thought that he might be the right kind of person to work with ownership. If a guy like Shanahan or any other good coach comes in and says, I like Brown, I wouldn't be upset by that. I really would. I know a lot of people want the burn it all down. I'm usually in that camp, burn it all down and get the full rebuild, but I think this is a pretty good alternative to that. What do you think about that?
yeah. No, I agree with you. I mean, look, I prefer the burn it all, not burn it all down, but go outside the building. But I'm not against it. I don't think Brand Brown has shown the a guy who deserves a promotion based off his work's done here. But I hear of what you're saying, and an argument I've made too is like, look, just because the front office has not necessarily got it done, the GM has gotten it done, doesn't mean everybody he hired is bad too. An example I used was Scott Pioli when he went over to Kansas City, one of the worst GMs I've ever seen. Hired Chris Ballard, hired Mike Borgonzi, hired Ryan Poles. All those guys got started under Scott Pioli. So, and they kept him. They stayed with future front offices because they were good. And look where they are today. So,
Yep, I wouldn't discard it, but there's a lot of we're going to have a lot of pods about this kind of stuff until we have decisions, and we are a little late. We got to finish up our stuff, so we're going to do our interior O line episode now. And like Monty alluded to, we're kind of we have a couple of positions left to do, namely safety and wide receiver after this, but we're going to wait for those after we're going to do quarterback first because I know everybody wants to hear quarterback, and it's time we did it. So
yeah.
this is our last non-quarterback episode. So we'll get this out of the way. We're going to quarterback, hopefully starting next week. We're going to work on it and get it for you guys. Once we're done with quarterbacks, we'll go back to safety and then wide receiver,
Yep.
and just finish up. And then we'll get to all the other stuff that's kind of more fun. But you ready to jump into this?
Yeah, man, I'm ready to jump into it. Yeah, like I said, I'm ready to do quarterback soon. I'm tired of telling everybody, this is my opinion, but I got to dive into it. I just want to
Yep.
dive into it and
Let,
get
let's
it, get our
let
thoughts out there.
and before we do, let's dive into the interior O line. So again,
Do it.
we have five guys here. We picked them based on a lot of different factors, people who are performing well this year, people who are high on Brugler's list, people who are on the freaks list. We're looking at all these factors. These are not going to be the top five guys in the draft in order. We just have our own system of guys we like that we want to bring up that we value. We do weigh things like how they fit on the Giants into this. So we pick five guys who we think will project as good interior offensive linemen in the NFL. And we have our usual scoring system for this. I'll quickly go through the criteria for you guys. Again, this is based on the Bill Walsh scouting guide, uh, and mixed in with things we've also learned from other sources. The the scoring traits for interior line are going to be athleticism, anchor, strength, technique, run game, and pass game. And those are the ones that we're going to score that will figure into the final score. And then we have ideal size, Giants grade, and Goon grade per usual. So we did our scoring system, we compared our scores, and the rankings are based off of that. So don't go crazy based on who goes where, but based on our rankings, you want to do this one or should I do it?
No, I can go ahead and do this one.
All right. So why don't you introduce number one on our list here?
Yeah, so number one on our list was a little bit of surprise, kind of our last second addition to this list, but graded out the best for us. And that was Gray Zabel from North Dakota State University. Offensive tackle slash offensive guard, 6'6", 305 pounds, is a 0-star recruit. He's a senior at North Dakota State University. And his PFF grades are phenomenal this year. I mean, he has a 91.8 overall grade, a 90.0 run grade, 89.4 pass protection, 83.3 true pass set, 87.2 zone, 83.6 gap. He had an 98.9 pass block efficiency. He's allowed 6 pressures, 3 hurries, 2 hits, 1 sacks, and 4 penalties on the year. Some other information. His dad played football in college. His mom ran track and played basketball. And he also played baseball and basketball in high school. To give you some of my thoughts on Gray Zabel. Watching him, he has really strong active hands. He uses hands effectively to battle pass rushers, consistently resetting to kind of like maintain his control throughout the play. He's a guy with a lot of versatility. He played guard up until last year, I believe,
Hmm.
and I'll be honest, he looks super, super, super natural at tackle. A lot of people think he's going to play guard at the NFL level, which I could see for sure, but I'll be honest, man, like he looks like a natural tackle when I watch him play. Like he's just so like calm and I don't know the way natural. He looks natural out there in space on an island. So it's something I really like about him. I thought he has really good grip strength. He'll lock onto a defender. He makes it difficult for them to disengage. This is something you said, and I agree. Is he has a Mauler mentality. He
Yep.
brings a physical, aggressive edge to the game. He shows a desire to finish blocks with authority. He has a really good anchor, I thought. He holds his ground well in pass protection, and he really absorbs some power rushes, and he's good at preventing defenders from collapse in the pocket. Um, he's effective footwork when engaged. That's something I noticed when once he gets his locked in pass protection on these guys, he's very good at kind of like moving his feet around, doing a jump step as needed to stay in front of these guys and and keep them engaged and maintaining contact with the defender. Um, let's see. Last thing I have for the pros, I said he was really capable in space. Like I said, basically to the offensive tackle thing. When I saw him out in space, where it's really kind of hard to get these defenders because they have room to go inside, outside. He uses his athleticism and his footwork really well to really not get taken advantage of, and that's why I really think he can stay outside if he needs to. Now, some of the cons, he leans a little bit too much. I think that's part of the reason he's so good at absorbing and anchoring down. He's not. Read off the weight earlier. He's only like 300 pounds. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but he really kind of leans forward into these guys and then pops back up and arches the back and keeps them locked in. But that's typically not what you want. You don't want to be leaning forward because experienced defenders can really they can take you off balance and really make you vulnerable to like a counter move. The same thing you kind of see in the run game. He lunges a little bit too much there, and you can lead some occasional balance and control issues there. And the last thing I'll say, this isn't a crazy thing. We'll talk about this for a few guys. You see this decently often, but he has some inconsistent hands placement. They'll end up outside the defender's frame. You'll end up around like the shoulder, and those can lead to some penalties. It can hurt your leverage and things along those lines. So, really impressive football player. One that we were told is going to be a guard at the NFL level, hence why he's at this. But I definitely think he's a shot to stay at tackle. But even if not, I think he's going to be an impressive player in the NFL. What do you think?
You nailed all the main points here. I think the issue here is that he's versatile. And I asked, put in the chat, like, does versatility figure into your grading system and should it? And the answer is yes. We didn't put it as a separate grade, but I think it kind of figures into some of the other independent factors we're going to go into. But I think we value it certainly. And this list, when I alluded to earlier, when I said what we're ranking and what we're looking for is something that is sort of giant centric. We're a Giants pod. The Giants badly need offensive linemen who can play multiple positions and be effective at them all. Right. We don't have that, and it hurts our depth. And you see our lines fall apart. Specifically, you're seeing at the tackle position. We don't have guys who can naturally play tackle, and it's killing us. Um, Greg Zabel's a guy who played guard until this year and was really good at guard. And at left, he moved to left tackle this year, and he's completely dominant. Now, here are the issues. His competition level at North Dakota State will make it harder to interpret some of the things we talked about, like his athleticism, his speed. Like, does he look fast because he's going against guys in the FCS, or is he going to be able to like actually keep that up in the in the NFL? Measurables. We don't have them. But even though he's 6'6", 302, whatever his frame is, he looks like a tackle. His arms are
Mhm.
small. His arm length is not. You can tell that there's a discrepancy between his height and his arm length, and that's one of those killer features, right? Like if you're trying to project out an NFL tackle, if you don't have like 34-inch arms, they're gonna kill you for it, right? So if he's got like 32-inch arms, they're gonna be like, no way, dude, you're not an NFL tackle.
And it's really tough because if he has 32-inch arms, the natural thing is like he's going to go inside, and maybe that's where he lives. But 6'6", 302 pounds is not a
He
guard frame.
and that gets into his some of the weaknesses that while he has a good anchor, really good anchor most of the time, where his anchor struggles is when he's facing like really large defensive tackles. Like big strong defensive tackles can cause him to fall into some traps when you watch him on tape. That's when he tends to try to lunge and get aggressive, and he can lose that base and the anchor. But we're nitpicking. Overall, this guy has really good technique. He does appear to have great athleticism, really good footwork. He's strong as an ox. He knows how to use his punch. I think he's an NFL tackle. I really do. I agree with you. And I think a lot of this is going to hinge on like what his arm length is. Honestly, it sounds stupid, but it will be like something how people view him. But at minimum, I know he can be a versatile piece. This is a guy who can be maybe a right tackle, maybe a left guard, maybe he's a swing tackle. This is a valuable NFL player. He really is. And I think, I'm not trying to hit necessarily a home run with every pick. Give me, especially on the offensive line, give me five doubles, right? And I got a good
Mhm.
offensive line. And this guy looks to me like he looks like a solid double. He
I agree.
really does. And that's kind of how I view him. So it's going to be interesting to see how his pre-draft process goes. He's going to get, I believe he's going to the Senior Bowl, but I'm not sure. Um, I'd have to go and check on that. But wherever he goes, he's going to get his measurements done. Even if it's at the combine, he'll get his measurements done. You'll see, and you'll hear how people view him. I think right now people do view him as an interior lineman. I believe that's mainly because of his experience and his arm length, but we'll find out. But I think he's the kind of guy that you draft in the second round or something, or third round, maybe if he falls there, take him, and you can just see where he fits on your team because he's a good player. He's just a good lineman. So that's how I
Agreed.
view him. Let's go into the grading system really quickly. The reason he's top of our list is he averaged out with the top grade for both of us.
Mhm.
Athleticism on the 1 to 5 scale, five being, all pro level at the NFL, three being average, four being above average, two being below average, one being not an NFL player. We gave him four. We think he's an above average NFL athletic lineman. Anchor, you gave him a four, I gave him a three. And the only reason I didn't give him a four there, Monty, is because of what I said, is when I saw him lose his anchor sometimes against larger defensive tackles.
Mhm.
And I think that's something we have to watch.
And
Uh,
I could see on the inside it being more of an issue than it was for him on the outside.
yeah, I think if I'm grading him purely as a tackle, this is a four.
Okay, that's
But
fair.
because I'm grading him as a tweener, as a versatile player, I'm giving him a three.
Yeah.
Strength, we both gave him a three. You can argue he's a four, but I think three is a safe place to put him. I think he's got average strength.
Yeah.
Technique, you gave him a three. I gave him a four. I mean, I thought he was above average there. What did you think?
It's just kind of like the inconsistency with like his hands getting outside and him leaning and stuff like that. That kind of knocked down a little bit for me, so I kept him at 3.
I also graded him a little higher in the run game. I gave him a four. You gave him a three. I think for similar reasons, I'm guessing. Um,
Yeah, you can, he can lean at times, or he can kind of lunge in the run game, and he didn't get like a ton of like when he got sometimes he got movement, it was really, really good, but other times he didn't get a ton of pop. It kind of went back and forth, so I just left it as average.
we both gave a 4 in the pass game. Um, Ideal size, we gave him average 3. Giants grade, we both gave him a 4 again for that versatility.
Hmm.
He's a double for the Giants and a solid one. Goon grade, he's a 5. For those who haven't watched him, just go watch his tape. You'll really enjoy it.
It's so much easier to grade Goon grade with like offensive linemen. You can really you get catch on those really fast. Like I said, he has a mauler mentality, like you wrote, and it's spot on. Even though he doesn't like, I gave him a 3 in the run game. Even though it doesn't necessarily always equal like him being the greatest run blocker. He's a guy who's gonna finish plays every single time. He's gonna block you out of bounds. Like he is a true mauler.
And he also has a mustache for K-Mac. He does have a mustache.
There you
Not
go.
quite the mustache that you're looking for. But with that segue, let's go to interior offensive lineman number 2 on our list, a more traditional mauler. And it is no other than Tate Rutledge, offensive guard from the University of Georgia, 6'6", 320 pounds, 4-star recruit. He's a senior. He was second team All American by the AP last year. He thus far this year has a 73.6 overall grade, 70.2 run blocking grade, 83.9 pass blocking grade, 69.7 in true pass sets, 67.7 in zone, 67.1 in gap. He has a 99.3 pass block efficiency rating and is allowed only 2 pressures, 1 hurry and 1 sack all year, with 1 penalty. His father played football at Tennessee Tech, earning a first team All OVC honor. In 1977, he had a short stint in the NFL. When you watch Tate Rutledge, first of all, before he puts on a helmet, Tate Rutledge looks like an essential component of every interior offensive line in the NFL. Everybody watching this, if you don't know who I'm talking about, Google Tate Rutledge, Ratledge, Ratledge. Google him right now, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. He looks like just a typical Appalachian dude with a mullet
You
and a
want one of those
mustache.
Southern boys with the tattoos who maybe should say something he shouldn't say. You got him.
Yeah,
T. Rutledge.
you got to have one of these guys. You got to have a guy like this on the interior. Uh, and he plays exactly how you would expect a dude who looks like him to play. This guy is explosive. Like off the
He
snap, he's
is.
explosive, and he's another mauler. Like he's looking to hurt somebody on every play, which I love. He's aggressively engaging blocks, and you see him just drive D linemen right out of the play. Like at the snap, he finds his target, hits it, and drives him completely out of the play. Very powerful at the point of attack. He finishes his blocks consistently. You watch him, and he's always doing what people love. He takes on the block, and he puts people in the dirt over and over and over again. If he's blocking you, there's a good chance you're going to end that rep on the ground with him just pushing you to the ground and lying on top of you. He has really good range for a guy who plays like that. He's impressively athletic. His feet are quick. He has a lot of range and pull and climbing the next level in zone, pulling. He leads the run game very effectively. And despite the fact that I'm describing somebody who sounds like, an Appalachian hitman, he's really smart. Like he's an extraordinarily smart offensive lineman. He recognizes defensive stunts and twists. He picks them up. He looks like a natural leader on the offensive line. Really fun to watch. And I mean, just a great combination of football IQ, raw athleticism and power, and like that Mauler mentality. Good in the pass game, good in the run game. As I said, he's a good processor. He's explosive. Anchor is really solid. You don't see this guy get bullied. You don't see him get moved much. He's got strong arms. He latches on people, and his hands are powerful. You're not beating him once he gets his hands inside your chest. And all the things that I'm looking for in an interior offensive lineman. I don't have a lot of negatives to say about him. The only negatives I would say are a result of how he plays, which is just very aggressive. He will sometimes miss. He attacks so quickly off the snap. He can be over aggressive and just miss his block and take himself out of the play completely.
Hmm.
He will lose balance because of that first step. Like good defensive linemen may let him take that first step towards them, move out of the way, and drive him to the ground because he's so aggressive. So these are, there's a little bit of controlled aggression that's needed in his game. You don't want to take away his aggression though, so it's a bit of a balancing act. He's a lunger. And sometimes when he does that, his hands get all over the place. His footwork can get out of control when he's lunging and out of control. To me, those are coaching issues, right? You don't want to take away his aggression, but I think a good offensive line coach will teach him how to harness what he's good at without getting too aggressive. But listen, if you're giving me the 80-20 rule, like 80% of the time his aggressive play style is going to win, 20% of the time he's going to look like a fool out there because he's going to miss, I'll take it, right? I mean, that's again, at minimum, that's a double, but this guy might be a home run. Um, Bottom line to me, he's an imposing guard. He's a difference maker. He's a mauler. You need this guy on your line. So I love this guy. What did you think about Rutledge?
I liked him too, man. I mean, I agree with a lot of what you said. I'll kind of just summarize kind of my thoughts on what I thought about him. I thought kind of what you said. He was a physically imposing guard. He played with tremendous power and intensity in both the run and pass game. He excels as a run blocker. Again, another guy with that Mauler mentality. Really good leverage that allows him, especially in the run game, that allows him to dominate the point of attack. He has that like extremely quick first step that makes him highly effective in really any schemes. The guy who, for like a big mauler is probably a guy who could, be dominant in even like a zone scheme because he can really get to that, that guy next guy that he's, responsible for very quickly. He, like you said, he's really has a really good ability for picking up defensive stunts, strong anchor, good grip strength that allows him to be reliable in pass protection in addition to, his run game. But yeah, like my only issues is his hand placement can get wide at times, and our guy who gets up around the shoulders. Um, his footwork can get him a little bit unbalanced. Like I said, he can be over aggressive. That's part of it. There's definitely areas of refinement needed for him, but I think overall, I think this is a high upside guy who fit what a lot of teams are looking for. He's who people want in the middle of their offensive lines, 100%.
I agree. Let's get to the grades. We had identical overall grades. We both graded out at 3.5 with slight differences in how we got there, but not a ton. I gave him a 4 for athleticism. You gave him a 3. I gave him a 3 for anchor. You gave him a 4. That's really where we differed for the most part. We both gave him a 4 for strength. I gave him a 3 for technique. You gave him a 2. I want to hear why you gave him a 2 for technique.
Yeah, I just felt that that was his biggest weakness. I felt like, I loved a lot about his game, but I felt like he got out of control a lot. He felt like he was a lot of times winning with, raw power and whatnot. And he just would take the wrong angles. His hands would get crazy. Like out of all these guys, the guys who I've seen like hands get wild, he was constantly on the outside of the shoulders. It's crazy because he didn't get a lot of penalties. He didn't get called for it, but I still like you're gonna get called for those penalties too often if you're out there all the time. And he just yeah, he's got wonky with his feet. So yeah, I knocked him. I think that's the biggest spot he needs some work.
Yep. All right. We both gave him a 4 in the run game. I gave him a 3. You gave him a 4 in the pass game. In retrospect, I probably could have given him a 4 here.
Yeah,
But
I
not
went
not
back and
really.
changed that because I was like, I thought he was good. I gave him like a 3, but then I'm like, I'm looking at how efficient he was this year. I'm like, man, like he let up what, like 2 pressures this year. I'm like, I gotta give this guy 4.
We both have similar grades in size. He's a 3. Giants grade a 4. Again, this is a solid player. Goon grade. I actually had him. I think I typed it incorrectly, but he's a 5. He's a goon. Big ass goon. Real ass goon. This one. So
I'll I'll also say I gave him a 3 for athleticism. I probably should have gave him a 4. I think, there's certain aspects of it where, if you have him pulling or working the second level, his athleticism closer to a 3, but his that first step is elite, and that should probably knock him up to a 4 purely off that first step.
yeah. And just the the way he climbs. He's effective. He's a good enough guard. Like if you have a really good guard, you can run zone very frequently with that guy because he can win
Mhm.
at the point of attack and climb easily with athleticism. He does that, right? He does that like play after play. He's also just really good and nimble with his feet on pull blocks. Like he's just a very versatile run block. He is a scheme versatile run blocker. If you want to run power and gap, he can do that. You want to run zone, he can do that. I think
Mhm.
he's an asset. And I think having guys like him allow you to have lesser players next to them, like a center who may not be playing well, or something like that.
Yeah,
Um, so, I think he's an asset.
not
And I
naming
think,
names.
right. When you're talking about the offensive line, you're trying to create as few weak links as possible, right? You're not necessarily looking for dominance in one spot. You want five guys who will hold each other, down and make sure that, the line doesn't break. And I think this is a guy that gives you that flexibility. He's good enough where he helps everybody on both sides of him. So I really like him. He's our number two. I think he'll probably be viewed as interior offensive lineman number one when all is said and done, but we're just going by our grading system. And again, we had our other guy who may be a tackle at number one. That takes us to somebody similar. Why don't you introduce us to our third lineman here?
Yeah, so another guy like our first who has some versatility, some offensive tackle guard versatility. Jonas Savanier. Jonas Savanier, 6'5", 330 pounds, out of Arizona, 3 stars. He's a true junior. All Pac-12 honorable mention. Outland Trophy preseason watch list, among other awards. So far this year, pretty solid grade, 74.2 PFF grade, 62.8 run block, 83.4 pass block. That's where he's been really successful, 77.3 true pass set, 69.9 zone, 52.7 gap grade. For his pass block efficiency, 97.8, 16 pressures allowed. Granted, a lot of pass sets. That's a big reason why. Because, 97.8 pass block efficiency is still really good. But 10 hurries, 2 hits, 4 sacks, 1 penalty. And Savanier was actually on the Feldman Freak list. So a little quick blurb from that. Savanier is surprisingly lean with a 21% body fat. And this offseason, he ran faster in 19 miles per hour, bench pressed 406 pounds, power cleaned 355, and squatted 532. So pretty damn good there.
Almost as good as Mike C.
Yeah, I was say no Mike C, but um, but yeah, I mean, what I had for him, I thought he had a really strong initial punch. And he delivered it extremely well timed. He was impactful and disrupted the defenders at the point of attack. He was very patient with his punch and would, he had his initial off the line, but he really would wait and strike a defender at the perfect time. Um, he had a really natural stance and balance. He shows a well balanced, effortless stance that kind of allows for efficiency both in the run and pass game. To add on to that, just really clean footwork in general. Displayed refined and disciplined footwork, allowing for effective movement and control. Really good at mirroring the defenders through that. I thought he had a really quick like hip flip. He had really efficient hips that helped seal defender away from the ball carrier in both, pass and run blocking situations. He's a powerful player in the run game, generates a strong push at the line of scrimmage, opening lanes in the run game. Strong grip and hand fighting ability. He uses his hands to neutralize pass rush moves and maintain control. So he has really good grip. And, one thing I noticed is, he's really good at hand fighting with these defenders who would, they would come to, with whatever move their hand, he would just knock it away. You just always had his hands engaged and was knocking away really good with his hands. That's definitely my favorite part about watching him. Some of the cons, I didn't love his anchor. I felt like he was somebody who relied more on his punch. Great punch, but kind of knocking that guy off and not giving him a chance to really get a power rush on him because his hands were so good, and using his arm extended. I did not feel like he was a guy who could dig into the ground and anchor down as well as some of these other guys, especially if you get moved into guard. Um, I thought he took some bad angles getting to the second level. He just occasionally take inefficient paths from working to linebacker to safety, reducing his effectiveness in space. He has some limited athleticism. He's not particularly explosive or agile, which may limit his effectiveness against quick defenders. And then the last one is just his depth and pass protection. He struggles to get sufficient depth in his sets, making him vulnerable to speed rush and longer plays. Again, that's more of a tackle criticism because that's what he's been playing this year. As a guard, that's not really something you want them to do. You don't want your guard to get depth, or you'll end up into the chests of the quarterback. So that's something that hopefully get remedied by moving inside. I'll say, we said with Zabel, he's a guy who I think could stay out of the tackle. A guy like Troy Fontenot is a guy that we should say a tackle. We've been a lot, pushed back in a lot of these guys that people should say they should move in the guard. They should move in guard. Savani is one of these first guys who is a really successful college tackle. I'm like, no, that guy looks like a guard. I see why people say he's a guard. So, yeah, that was my thoughts. What else do you have to add on that, Sal?
Not much. You got everything. I think the take home you got to towards the end there, which I think we both agreed on, is when you watch him, what stands out as a strength is his patience. He's an extraordinarily patient lineman, both at tackle and at guard. He played a lot of. He played right guard, and now this year exclusively right tackle, left tackle, like split evenly. Um, but he's patient. Like he will drop into his sets, and he has strong hands, and he can definitely beat you once he gets his hands inside. But he'll wait. He will wait and wait and wait for that lineman to the edge rusher or the interior lineman to make their move, and then he'll drop his hands into their chest plate and push them back, and then he stonewalls guys. Like he's a very strong guy. So I was impressed by his natural patience at the position. Um, I like I mean, I think technically he's a very good player. I like him a
Mm-hmm.
lot. He's just not the athlete that I think you need to be in terms of lateral agility and speed to really. And even though the numbers, don't some of the numbers are ridiculous, but you know, the 19 miles per hour. And I'm curious to see how he runs a 40, but on tape it doesn't show. Like you don't see somebody who's moving quickly out there with lateral agility and speed. And I wonder if that can last as a tackle in the NFL level. I just don't think it will. I don't think it's because of measurables. I think it's literally just that. And we'll see. I think he's a guy though that I think has that versatility. Personally, I actually think he's a person who can he can be another one of these doubles, a tweener who can play both positions.
Mm-hmm.
Probably more as a guard, but one of the guys I thought it was like a comp for him was a guy like Jermaine Illuminar.
Yeah.
And and I think I'm guessing you can see what I'm getting at with that. Like Illuminor, there's nothing spectacular about Illuminor, right? He's just technically sound. He's a patient blocker. Um, I can see this guy being kind of like an adequate NFL tackle at some point in his career, but I do think he'll find success as a guard. Even though Illuminor struggled at guard, I do
Mm-hmm.
think he will. So another double, another guy I would say you draft in the, somewhere on day two if you want to, and you put him in your room and you let him figure out where he fits. I would probably start him in the interior, let him play there, and over time, if it works, you can potentially put him at guard. Um, but you know,
Yeah.
sorry,
No,
I yeah,
you're good.
give
But
me.
yeah, no, I agree with you.
Mm.
I think he's a guy who, I think projects a little bit better at guard. But is a guy who ultimately can play both positions for you.
Can you give me 1 second?
Yeah.
I'm trying to see if there's an animal outside my window. Give me a second.
You're good. I'll go ahead and I'll just go into our grades here while Sal's stepping away for a second. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen and kind of show what we had here for comparisons. All right, so Sal and I both ended up with basically the same grades. I had a 3.5, Sal had a 3.5. So athleticism, we both had a 3. Uh I like we talked about. I don't we didn't neither of us saw an extraordinary athlete, you know, um not a 2 or anything like that, but an average player at the NFL who can get the job done, but nothing more than that. Um I had the anchor at 3. I'll let Sal when he gets back kind of talk why he had an anchor at 4. But for me, it was I just didn't like I said, I talked about it earlier. I did not see a guy who could sink his hip and really take on a power rush. I thought he was a guy who won more technically sound than he did with his just straight anchoring ability. Sal, why'd you give him a 4 for anchor?
I just thought that his balance was so good on most of his reps that he was able to actually really stonewall a lot of guys with his anchor. I know what
Mhm.
you're getting at, but I just feel like more often than not, as long as he got his hands up at the right time, people didn't, he didn't lose because his lower body would give out. It's just not something I saw a lot of. So I thought he was above average in that regard. I can see what you're getting at, but I thought that was one of his strengths actually.
Yeah. I mean, to your point, I did end up giving him a 4 for strength, so we're kind of flipped here. I because you gave him a 3 for strength. I felt, like getting initial pop off the line and things like that. I felt he played with, he came off the line low and, had a good balance and good strength to really get the initial pop in these guys. I felt going forward, I liked his strength. It was
Can
just more going back.
Are you able to enlarge the page for people to see the scores? Because Joey is asking if
Yeah. Let me see what
there
I'll
you go,
go one more.
there you go, there you go, Joey. All right. Yeah, I mean, overall, I mean, we both gave him, I think the strength issue I get. I think after that, technique 4, run game 3, pass game 4, we have identical scores there. He's just a sound technical player. 4 4 4 for size grade and size Giants grade, Goon grade. Um, Again, a solid NFL player with the potential to be an above average NFL guard is how I look at him. And
Mhm.
maybe some versatility as a tackle, another double on day 2, and that's kind of how I have him.
Yeah. Not somebody who, like, I need to come out of day 2 with, but as a guy I'm gonna keep my eyes on, and if the value lines up, I would love to walk away with a guy like this.
Yep. All right, let's go to number 4 here.
Yep.
Number 4 on our list is a guy we actually reviewed last year.
Mhm.
He's back on the list, and he's an interesting story I want to talk about a little bit today. And it kind of feeds into the theme we've been going through in this episode and the type of players we're going over. But number 4 on our list is Donovan Jackson, offensive guard from the Ohio State University, 6'4", 320 pounds. He was a 5-star recruit coming out. If I'm not mistaken, he was the highest graded guard coming out of high school his year.
Yep.
Um, he made first team All Big Ten from media voters in 2022. He was Big Ten Conference Distinguished Scholar. He was a scholar athlete, all academic All Big Ten in 2021. He was a scholar athlete. His PFF scores this year, and these come with a caveat, so keep that in mind. But 66.4 overall, 66.9 in the run, 60.6 pass grade, 31.6 true pass set. That sounds horrible. I'll get to that. 68.1 in zone and 63.8 in gap. He had a 96.7 pass blocking efficiency, has allowed 17 pressures, 11 hurries, 4 hits, 2 sacks, 2 penalties. I know those numbers are not pretty, but here's the catch. He has been shifted this year out of necessity to left tackle. The man is not a tackle, and he's played many games at left tackle this year because of their injury to their own future NFL All Pro tackle. And he's had to go and play left tackle completely out of position this year, which is killing his production and killing his grading. But in my opinion, it's making him a better player for the NFL. So I looked at his film as a tackle as well as a guard. I'm going to go mainly over the guard because that's what he is at the NFL level. Here's what you see about him. He's a great athlete. He's a really, really good athlete. He has elite footwork. It's his athleticism, his speed, his quickness. It's all on display regularly. He's quick off the snap. He's smart. He's got a high IQ. You can tell that he's experienced. He picks up stunts and twists very well. He knows how to maximize running lanes with technique. He knows how to seal block very well. He has great lateral movement. He's a very effective pull blocker. He can climb to the next level on zone. So kind of like Ratledge, he uses athleticism to help in the run game. He does finish blocks very well because he's strong. He's good punch. Um, he does all the things you want a guard to do. He's smart. He has a good IQ. He has a good strong base with a strong platform, and his arm usage in pass pro is very good. He has a good length. He gets his arms out. You put that down. He gets his arms out and blocks guys from getting to the pass rusher. If you want to go through the cons quickly, he does play with a bit of a high pad level. He has a tendency, like some of these taller guys, to lunge and lose balance. He can be inconsistent with block finishing. Mostly he does finish, but sometimes he won't sustain the blocks. Um, as athletic as he is, sometimes his strength is lacking. You see it in the run game, and there are times where his punch is not greatly timed. overall, I think this is a high upside player, very high upside athlete on the interior line. And if you're drafting somebody to be an athletic big lineman who can help you in pulling and setting up your run game and zone to the second level, this is the kind of athlete you take a swing on. He's a very good football player already with a good IQ. Um, in my opinion, his the fact that he stepped up and played offensive tackle this year when his team needed him, and he's getting just fed to the dogs out there, because he doesn't have the kind of raw athleticism and size and length for to play tackle. The fact that he's doing an okay job out there and holding his own and learning that is going to serve him very well in the NFL level, because he's not playing tackle at the NFL. He's a guard, and he's getting a lot of experience taking on really big time edge rushers that in the Big Ten. So I'm actually liking Donovan Jackson a lot more than I did this time last year. So I'm a big fan right now. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I wanted to add on to some of your talk to really make people understand the difference between him and as a tackle and a guard. So, some of his PFF grades through the first few weeks as a guard: 86.6, 62, 71.3, 64.4, 69.4. That's how he started the season at guard. All really good. Zero pressure, one pressure, one pressure, one pressure, one pressure. All around was a very good start. First game against Penn State, where he had to play left tackle of necessity, 39.4 PFF grade, 0.0 pass blocking grade. He allowed 2
Against
sacks, 3
against
hurries, 5
the
pressures.
the future top edge rusher taken in this class, by the way.
Correct.
So,
And
and I think
and
he
the
I think
first time he's playing out there.
I think he did okay. I know how these grades are given. He looks terrible in every rep, but I think he didn't let Abdul Carter destroy that game.
Mhm.
That was his job, was don't let this become a five alarm fire. I think he looked back. He didn't look pretty doing it, but he got the job done. That means a lot.
Yeah, and he's hasn't had nearly as bad of a game since. He followed that up with a 87.2 pass block grade against Purdue. The next week, 0 pressures allowed. So, but that's just a game like that kills his overall numbers. And he's had other bad ones: a 3 pressure game, a 4 pressure game. So tackle is not his spot. That's clear. The other thing I wanted to talk about was this is another guy who was on PF on the
Freak
Feldman
list.
Freak list. Yeah. So I'll give you another blurb from that. 6'4", 320 pounder. Bench press 490 pounds this off season. Squatted 610. His agility, just as impressive. His 159 10-yard split is faster than any offensive lineman has ever clocked at the NFL Combine since the league officially kept that stat. Jackson vertically jumped 30 inches and went with a 9.7 in the broad jump. I mean, look, I didn't even see the freak list till after, like as far as with Donovan Jackson. We both saw it. This athleticism pops on film.
Yep.
This is not just a freak list type thing. It was so obvious, and that's the one thing I'll add before we get in the grades. That was the number one thing I came away when I saw him. I saw an extremely athletic and versatile guard who he just had very natural movement skills and made him a standout in space and an asset in those like a zone blocking scheme. I think would be perfect for him. Just he'd be a total asset there. Shines as a puller and climbing the second level, showcasing his fluidity and control. But yeah, overall, I think he projects as a really high upside player, a scheme versatile guard whose athleticism really just makes him like that's what his superpower is, and that's what makes him an excellent fit for the NFL.
Yeah. And I think, again, I'm he's, I'm loving the fact that he's getting this experience. I really am. And I'm hoping to see more from this kid. I think he's gonna get a chance to play in the playoffs, and show his stuff, and we'll see him going up against some pretty good edge rushers, most likely. So uh, I like it. I think he's getting good experience. I don't, I, when he gets the NFL, I mean, I wonder if this is going to negatively affect his stock. The fact that he's, having to play tackle, I don't think it will. But where I have him graded right now is, where do the top guards go? They're usually like late first to mid second, and that's kind of in that range. I think he's one of those, what we call the first, second round grade. He's probably he's probably more firm second round grade, but it's probably somewhere between like pick 30 and 60, somewhere in there, right? I think that's kind of where I see him landing. I don't, unless he blows up the combine, which he could.
Very well could.
And if he does that, I don't know if he's going to the Senior Bowl. Probably not. But I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean,
Maybe he
also
is.
keep in mind, interior offensive line typically, they fall out of the first round constantly. So I think I would bet he's a day two guy.
Yeah. From a scoring system, you gave him a 5 on athleticism. I gave him a 4. In retrospect, I probably could have given him a 5. I
Yeah,
don't give out a lot of fives. Anchor, we both gave him a 3. He's got an average anchor. Strength, you gave him a 2. I gave him a 4. This was our biggest discrepancy.
yeah.
Why did you give him such a low score on strength, and why did I give him such a high score?
Yeah, I mean, you can see in kind of what I put in there in the cons. I mean, I think the two biggest things that play into that was one, I thought he was inconsistent finishing his blocks, which kind of just played into like his play strength, like and how that shows up in film. And then just I felt like he didn't generate a lot of power and movement off the line of scrimmage. I didn't think he was like awful there, but I just didn't feel like he moved guys. I felt he was more of a guy who kind of just shielded and got in the way, which isn't
Okay.
necessarily always the worst thing. But I felt like I felt like he could play more with strength on top of not having that much strength. It was kind of led it to a 2. I don't think he's a guy who's incapable in the NFL though. I just think that's how he's playing right now.
I gotcha. All right. Technically, we'll give him a 3. He's probably got average technique. I think he gets by more with athleticism than just technique, which to
Mhm.
me actually signals upside because technique
For
can be
sure.
taught.
Yeah.
Run game, you gave him a 4. I gave him a 3. I could have probably given him a 4. He's very good at pull blocks. Um,
Yeah.
and pass game, you gave him a 3. I gave him a 4. I gave him a little bit of an upgrade there because I just thought that he handled his own enough at tackle. I think it's going to translate very well at guard. So ideal size 4, Giants grade 4, Goon grade, you gave him a 3. I gave him a 4. It's a good football player. I mean, again, another guy who I think this is more of an upside swing than some of the other guys. This one has a chance that if you take him and he hits on his technique, this could be like he actually has like all pro guard potential with his athleticism. So it's an interesting pick. I don't know if they'll go that route, but I wouldn't be upset if we walked away with Donovan Jackson.
Yeah, man. I could I could see him falling because he's having a really bad year at tackle right now,
Mm.
like overall. And that it could help him, it could hurt him. I'm not sure how that will play. And like he went back to school partially because I don't think he was probably getting the greatest grade. So like, if this guy ends up being like a late day 2, early day 3, I mean, you see interior offensive line fall all the time. I mean, look at we loved Christian Haynes last year. Look where he fell to.
They
Like
fall. Yeah.
so I could easily see him being like a third, fourth rounder, and I'd be all over him there.
Yep. I mean, I'd take him in the second. I'd be honest. Like depending on who's on the board, right? Obviously, it depends on who's on the board and how you grade them. But you could do worse than an upside swing like this guy in the second round. Now, where the Giants would pick in the second, maybe you
Yeah,
can make an argument, But
now
would
the
I
heartbeat.
trade? But would I trade down a couple of times? Trade down a
Yeah.
little bit, pick up another day 3 pick, and pick Jackson in the middle of the second round? Yeah, I would. Absolutely, he's a good player. So, again, it's just a guy I wasn't super high on coming into the season, but watching what he was able to do playing tackle and guard, I was very impressed by what I'm seeing. And to me, that it's something we don't get to see watching film, but I'm guessing that reflects character. That
Mhm.
reflects a willingness to be a great teammate and go out there and know with your draft stock on the line that you're going to get your clock cleaned out of position and you're doing it for your team and you're doing a good job. I really think that's something I would look to enjoy. Um, anyway, I mean, that's something I would enjoy if they took, but that's number 4. Number 5, you're gonna do number 5, and definite last and definitely in our minds least.
Yeah.
No offense to this young man, but I don't think he stood out like the others did.
Yeah, no, he didn't quite stand out like the others did, unfortunately. We felt pretty good about all the ones up to this point. But yeah, the last one is Tyler Booker, offensive guard out of Alabama, 6'5", 325 pounds. He was a four-star recruit. He's a true junior. He had a 67.7 PFF grade, 66.1 run block grade, 86 pass block grade, really good there, 79.2 true pass set, 65.7 zone, 66.5 gap. To go into some of his past stats, 98.6 pass block efficiency. So 9 pressures, 7 hurries, 2 hits, no sacks, 7 penalties. It's a lot of penalties, folks. And to give you some of my thoughts on him, he has a powerful presence. I thought he played significant strength, and he delivered knockbacks and blocks and often finished defenders into the ground. Um, I thought he had pretty good footwork and pass protection. He maintained discipline and consistent footwork, helping him stay in position against rushers. Thought he had a strong anchor. He held his ground effectively in pass protection, rarely driven back by power rushers. And then last thing for the pros, I said, effective in tight spaces. He was a guy who excelled in, guy who won in a phone booth, as people say. He used his strength and his frame to really control defenders when, he could play. When he could play in a phone booth, he won. Um, Now the cons, why he's last. I felt he was slow and lumbering out of his stance. I think that was a word we both used independently when we saw him. He was a lumbering player. He lacked that initial explosiveness, and it made him late off the snap and vulnerable to quicker defenders. I felt he looked unathletic at the second level. He struggled with movements and awareness when climbing to linebackers, often appearing lost and just overall ineffective. I thought his hands were really inconsistent. Frequently, again, another guy allowed his hands outside on defensive shoulders, and you saw 7 penalties. Probably played a big role in the 7 penalties because that can lead to a lot of holding calls and loss of leverage, and really that makes you even more vulnerable to holds because you're trying to recover and you do something stupid. Eric Flowers was the king of that. Hands too low and pass protection. So, you typically want your hands up high and ready to strike. He kept his hands like he was about to get into a shootout in the Midwest. He keeps it down closer to his hips and low. That's not where you want him. His poor position and delays his ability to engage effectively with defenders. And the last thing I had is he lacks balance. He knocked off feet or out of position, particularly when dealing with quicker and more agile defenders. A lot of issues we seem to hear about with Alabama offensive linemen. Kind of getting tired of these guys. We got a little bit of the Evan Neal effect at this point with us as Giants fans, but you can see it. So you get to see it in a lot of these guys. And I don't think he's nearly the athlete as some of these other Alabama offensive linemen who kind of get away with it when they're drafted highly. But what are your thoughts, Sal?
Yeah, you nailed it. He looks like an Alabama lineman, and I think we've
Yeah.
been watching these guys for years, and something about what they recruit. These guys are really big and lumbering, all of them. Like they just look clumsy coming out of their stance almost. I don't know what it is about these Alabama linemen, but that's just kind of how they look. They're so physically dominant in college that they get away with it. I worry about it at the NFL level. It just looks slow. I mean, that's the word I would use. Just looks slow. He's strong. He's strong as an ox. When he gets his hands on you as a guard on the interior, he'll drive you backwards. And he has actually pretty good footwork. For somebody his size, I think he has
Hmm.
decent footwork. But that's good anchor, good footwork, strong. But that's kind of where the strengths end for me. I feel like there's a lot you're looking for in a guard in a modern running game, for example. You want what we've talked about a lot of times today, the athleticism to pull, and that means getting out of your stance and actually racing around the tackle and leading blocks. He cannot do that. Like you watch him, he struggles to do that. And they rarely ask him to do it too, but when they did, it wasn't pretty. Or the athleticism to quickly get off your block, set up your block at the line and then climb to the next level and take guys out. And like you mentioned, he looks lost. Like he's
Hmm.
slow to get to the second level. Guys go right around him. He's just not quick enough to take on like linebacker speed. Um, and I think that's just something that stands out. He's just not very quick, and I think he's going to be a limited guard at the NFL.
The one thing I'll give him a little bit of credit for with his athleticism is they kind of have him pull out on those sweeps, and I felt like he had decent warm up speed. Like once he kind of got moving, he was like he was like an out of control truck. Like he could get going
Right.
eventually.
That's a good. Right. I mean, once you went through all the time it took to go from first to second to third gear, and
Yeah.
like that's the thing. Like, yeah, if he has a running start and a lot of running room, he can be a problem. But That's fine. I mean, I think on those plays he can be useful, but on your typical, pull blocks, where it's a
Yeah.
very quick, pull outside and and basically take out somebody quickly so that you can create a running lane for your running back. He's not a guy who's going to get to that landmark fast,
No,
and
he's
and that's
helpful. Sorry.
no good.
He's helpful for Alabama because you have those big QB sweeps with Jalen Milrow, and he can kind of hold the ball for a second and fake the pass, and then give him his time to get out there, and then he'll get a run and start. And those where I saw him get a little bit effective.
Yeah, I guess I see that Alex likes him in the chat, and I mean, listen, people are going to like this guy 'cause he's a big dude, and that raw strength does matter, and I wouldn't dismiss it. Maybe I am scarred from the Evan Neal and
Yeah, it's
The Alabama experience, and I just can't appreciate these guys anymore. And I fully acknowledge that might be an issue when I'm watching them. But man, I don't know about you, man. I watch these guys, especially in that Alabama jersey, the way they play. I'm like, God, keep this off my team. Like I don't want to see this. I want the athletes. I want good athletes who are strong as shit. And there are plenty of them. He's strong. He's just I don't think he's a great athlete. But
I
we'll
don't
see.
think
I mean,
so
he'll
either.
test and he'll get a chance to prove it. Um,
Hey, well,
I
shout out him. He is from Connecticut though, so shout out to Tyler Booker.
Connecticut linemen. They're
Yep.
always great, right?
Yeah.
Grading system. You graded him a little bit worse than I did. We both gave him a 2 for athleticism. I think he's a below average athlete. I don't think he's going to grade out as a great athlete in the NFL level. Anchor, we both gave him a 4. Um, Strength, we both gave him a 4. So those are really good scores for those things. Technique, I gave him a 3. You gave him a 2. Why'd you give him a below average technique grade?
It was more hands than feet. His hands getting outside. Like we've talked about that with a few guys, but I think he was the most egregious with it. And then how he keeps his hands low when he's in pass protection. That's part of it. And I felt like he took some bad angles and such. And kind of looked lost at times going to the second level. So that's really where it mostly came from. But
We
I didn't have as much issue in other areas. Like his footwork and pass protection I thought was good.
we both gave him a 3 in run game, or we kind of just told you guys all the reasons we don't like him in the run game. But at the end of the day, he's a big road grader, so like there is utility there on
He'll
interior blocks.
he'll win in a phone booth. If a
Yep.
guy right in front of him, he'll win.
In pass game, he is a 4. I think he's an above average pass blocker.
I agree.
And if you're looking for like a big dude who's going to just be like that, that planet theory on the inside, who's just going to not let a guy get past him to get to the quarterback, a lot of value there. I think that's an essential skill. Obviously, you don't want somebody from the interior pass rushing and beating you. So there's sort of a high floor there if you want to think of it that way. Like if as long as you protect your quarterback, you give the guy a floor of a good pass rusher. I think if we're talking about taking an early pick, a day one or day two pick on a guard, I want someone who can actually be a weapon and an asset in the run game. I think that's really essential in a guard. So that's why I don't love the guy, but he's a very good pass blocker. Ideal size, we both gave him a 4. He's above average. Giants grade, we gave him a 3. I'm not sure how he helps us with the personnel we already have, but then again, I don't know what the coaching philosophy will be. I think it's going to depend on
Yeah,
who we get.
it's true.
And Goon grade, you gave him a 4. I gave him a 3. I did not see the Goon in him. You did. Why did you see Goon in him?
I just saw him. I thought he when he did get his hands and got guys moving, I felt like he could finish a block and stuff. Like I went back and forth between 3 and 4 there. I just did that last second right now because I forgot to do it, but I was
All
back and
right,
forth second in my
good
head.
enough. Good enough for me. All right. So overall, just recapping our our ranking system. Our number one interior offensive lineman may not be an interior offensive lineman. It's the kid out of North Dakota State. Gray. Why am I blanking? Because I'm so tired. Um,
Trey Zabel, right?
Gray Zabel, yes, I'm having a brain fart. Gray Zabel ranked number 1 in our list. We see him as potentially a tackle in the NFL, but I think he's being projected as a guard. Number 2 is Tate Ratledge from Georgia, easy pick there. Number 3, Savanoa from Arizona. Number 4, Donovan Jackson from Ohio State. Number 5, Tyler Booker from Ohio State. That's our top 5. Again, we'll tell you guys we don't expect these guys to go in the order we're saying. We're just our own. We watch them. We watch a few games. We look at the data in terms of their scoring, their pass block, whatever the stats are for their position. We come up with our grades based on what we see, and we just trust our grades. And we're going to play this out. So a lot of our rankings, 1 to 5, are going to make no sense to you guys compared to what you see as consensus. We're just going by what we see. And I say this on every episode. Matt Waldman told us this in our episode last year. Just have an objective system, follow it, stick with your own numbers, stick with your own evaluation. Who cares if it's in line or not with what other people say? And you go back and see if it worked out, right?
Exactly. If our system stinks, we'll find new ways and try to figure out where we went wrong and find new things to add and take away that weren't as effective and finding the grades correctly.
All right, so that's our five. Let's go into this week's games. We're going into some interesting games this weekend. Some of the championship games for the
Yep.
conferences. So this is the final week before we head towards the college football playoff. So we have some good games coming up. Friday night, the one to watch, I would say this is a good one. Number 20 UNLV at number 10 Boise State. Uh, the winner of this game obviously will get well, at least you would expect Boise State to win it. They
Boise
have
get
a
the yeah.
Yeah, they would get the bid to the playoff if they win this game.
Yeah,
Um,
Boise will get a first round bye if they win this game.
this is a big one, and they have potential top 10 pick Ashton Genty on their team. This is a we'll get into we haven't gotten into like the overall boards. We'll get there, but you know, safe to say the top of this class pales in comparison to last year's class when it comes to the blue chippers and the true first round graded guys. Um, there's good depth in this class, so this is a good class to actually get a lot of day two picks, day three picks if you can get them. But the top of the class isn't great. But Ashton Genty is one of the elite players in this class as a running back. He's putting up ridiculous numbers. He's a Heisman candidate. Boise State, I'm rooting for them to win this game, man. I want to see Ashton Genty in the college football playoffs going crazy and see what he can do against some big time defenses. So that's a good one to watch. Friday night, I think that's the one to watch. That's 8 o'clock on Fox. Saturday, you have a good one early on ABC. Iowa State number 16, Arizona State number 15. Both of those teams, really could make the 12 team playoff, right? One of them I think will make it. I don't know if both will make it, but the winner of this game I think will make the
I
playoff.
think I think you get a bid if you win a
If you
conference
win,
championship. Yeah.
you will.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think the other one will make it though. I think
No,
they're gonna leave the
yeah.
loop. So the winner of this game gets it. And Arizona State's had a spectacular year. I think, and so has Iowa State. Like they both deserve a shot at this. But this is a line of Arizona State -2. This is close. Like this is gonna be a fun one. So watch that game. The 4 o'clock game to watch, the SEC title game. I'm actually surprised at 4 o'clock. Interesting timing for that game. But number 5 Georgia at number 2 Texas. This is awesome. Um,
Yeah.
so this is a rematch, but we have a shot to see who wins this game. The winner of this game will absolutely get a bye. The loser will probably still get in. You know, will
Mhm.
probably still get in. Now Georgia has 2 losses. I think 3 losses. They'll still get in even if they lose in this game. So they probably still squeak in, but the winner will get a bye. So they're playing for a bye here, more likely than not. Um, and then at 8 o'clock, the game to watch. There's actually 2 good games to watch, but the one to watch that everybody's going to be watching for the most part is the Big Ten title game. Number 3 Penn State at number 1 Oregon. This one is in Indianapolis at Lucas Oil Stadium. Oregon's a slight favorite, 3.5 points. I mean, again, winner's going to get a bye here, loser's going to get a bid, but it's about the bye and it's about winning the Big Ten in this game.
Bro, I have this pulled up on ESPN. Some of the ticket prices, like in a low way, are ridiculous for this game, for these games.
20, yeah, I mean the this one it's $21 for the cheapest ticket.
To go to number 1 versus number 3 at Lucas Oil Stadium. If you're in
And
Indianapolis, listen to this. Go see the fucking the Big Ten championship.
honestly, if you're anywhere near Indianapolis, if you're in Chicago, if you're anywhere in Indiana, like anywhere near there, just go to this game.
That's a great game.
You get tickets for $20, and just drive down there and enjoy it. That's a really good game too. Those are two good teams. They're legitimate national title contenders, both of them. I mean, Abdul Carter is a top 10 pick, the edge rusher out of Penn State. You're going to get to see him. Drew Aller has quietly had a very good year at
Hmm.
quarterback. I don't think he's going to declare for the NFL draft this year, but he could. He might. I think it's more likely he comes out in the 2026 class. But he's having a pretty solid year, and obviously Oregon has been awesome all year. They've really been a powerhouse, and right now they're the consensus favorite to win the national title. Um, a lot of pro players on that team. So that if you can go to that game, get tickets and go. The other 8 o'clock game worth watching. Number 17 Clemson at number 8 SMU, the ACC title game. This is D-Kid's team. He's adopted SMU as a Dallas guy.
All
SMU
right.
had a really good year, and watch out. I mean, I think they might be a problem when come playoff time. They certainly will get in, obviously, with an automatic bid if they win this game. I think SMU gets in even if they lose this game.
All
Um,
right.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, Clemson can only get in if they win this game. They have 3 losses. If Clemson wins this, they'll win the ACC and they'll get a bid in. They won't get a bye, but they'll get in. I think SMU gets in anyway. If they lose like a
Yeah.
close game, I think both of these teams could potentially be in the top 12. So it's an
We'll
interesting scenario here.
yeah, we'll see if they kick Alabama out.
Yeah, I mean, Alabama. I mean, personally, if Clemson beats SMU, I don't see a world in which Alabama should make
I
the top
agree.
12.
You had one loss going into the conference championship game, and the conference championship game shouldn't knock you out at that point.
Yeah, there's no way SMU should not make it
If
if
you
they
if
lose the
you
game.
yeah, if you're a top 10 team going into the conference championship game, you should keep your spot regardless for the most part. I mean, things can happen, but
Exactly. And then if you feel like watching even more football on Friday, the Giants do have a football game. If you feel like watching it against the New Orleans Saints at home, um, Drew Lock is starting, I believe. So, that's good. Dexter Lawrence is out. Uh, Theo Johnson's gone. Looks like Jermaine Illuminator is likely to be out, or at least he's questionable right now. And, we obviously don't have Andrew Thomas. And so what are we down to? Chris Hubbard and Josh Azudu in that game.
yep,
That should be fun.
fun stuff.
Yeah. I did put up a poll before we close this out. I put up a poll on Twitter the other day, asking this question on the over under. You guys can find my handle if you want and find the poll if it's still open. But actually, I'm going to look it up. It might have closed by now. But the Twitter poll is very simple. It's the Giants face the following 5 running backs in the final 5 games in order. We have um, Alvin Kamara, we have Derrick Henry, then we have Bijan Robinson, then we have Jonathan Taylor, and then we finish off with Saquon Barkley, who's going to try to break Eric Dickerson's rushing record and win the MVP. Those 5 running backs are who we have to face. Dexter Lawrence is gone on already the worst run defense in the NFL. Without Dexter Lawrence, I don't even know what this looks like. Your defensive line unit, if everybody is healthy, is Nacho, Elijah Chapman, DJ Davidson, and Jordan Riley. And apparently Nacho's hurt right now. So
Yeah.
I don't know who the hell is playing D line for this team. So it's gonna be ugly. So my question was, if you combine those 5 running backs, all of their yards from scrimmage, running and receiving, I put the over under at 850, which is 100 in 5 games, 162 yards per game average. Over or under? What's your thought, Monty?
I I don't have a lot of belief in us, but I'd be hard pressed to bet it
I,
over.
that's
That's a
a
high number.
it is a high number. It's crazy. I have people telling me to do 900. I'm like, that's insane. That's 180.
If
Um,
you gave me like 650, I would take the over, but that's a lot.
so you're gonna take the under?
Yeah, I'll take the under.
So I did the poll yesterday. I got 140 votes. I appreciate you guys who voted. 86.4% of people took the over. and
People are.
only 13.6% took the under 850. I mean, I think I'm actually going to take the over. Here's why. K Max sent me a message. K Max like, man, he's like, I think it'll be in the high 700s. I agree. It'll be in this high 700s in the fourth quarter of the Philly game. And then Saquon Barkley from his own 23-yard line will take a handoff and go like 77 yards for a touchdown to not only push the number over 850, but also break Eric Dickerson's rushing record. I mean, I can 100% see that play out. So I mean, it's a lofty expectation to get to 850 from those five guys in 5 games, but like our running, this is like a combination of like five elite running backs facing probably the worst interior run defense ever assembled. The unstoppable force versus the most movable object in history. You know, so does it get to 850? So you're taking the under.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the under, but
All right.
man, I don't feel good about how we're doing. It's a high number. Um, one other thing I wanted to address from the chat, and I'll get it in kind of two ones. We had I'll do a two-parter here. One K Max said who just missed top five, and Brad said all guards, no love for the centers. So I don't for as far as guards, again, I don't love this interior offensive line class. I'm sure more guys will come out, but this wasn't like we weren't struggling leaving people off on this one like some other positions like edge. We were really struggling leaving people off. This one, we figured it out. We got our guys. Gray Zabel was last one on the list though, and he ended up number one. So shout out Gray Zabel. But some centers because we didn't really talk too much about centers. Rad's guy, which I'm sure he was hoping you're. I think it's Jonah Monahan.
Monheim.
Monahan.
Monheim. Yeah.
He's a very good player. He definitely had a shot at this list. Parker Brailsford from Alabama, Jake Majors from Texas. Those
Yeah,
are definitely some
Jake
guys.
Majors. Jake Majors is one to watch for. If we go, this is a career center, tons of experience. In the last 3 years, he's logged something like 2,500 snaps, 2,600 snaps at center only. Um, I think he's given up what I'll do the math quickly, like 221, 26 total pressures in 3 years. Now, you don't expect centers to give up a lot of pressures, but I mean, this is a good player at a Power Five school, at one of the best schools in the country, playing real stiff competition. Um, Kind of, the Olu, the Oluwatimi of this class in many ways. He's that
Mhm.
experienced center coming out. I don't see him going high in the draft. I think he's probably going to be a guy that falls to day three. But depending on who's drafting and what we're thinking about doing at the position, he's somebody to watch for. I would happily take a day three swing on Jake Majors.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say to answer Alex's question, are we giving up on JMS? Look, I'm not like totally giving up on JMS. I still think he might be able to be an average center of the league, but here's the problem. We fire Shane. That's not this guy anymore. And two, I think the bigger thing than just changing GMs is if we bring in more of a zone running offense that does not fit, he does not have the athleticism JMS to really to survive in that. So I think if we switch to like one of these West Coast like Kyle Shanahan type offenses, I don't think JMS will be nearly as valued in there, and he's already not that great of a player. So I could see us moving off in that situation, unfortunately.
Yep. I mean, here, I haven't looked at the free agency class yet. We'll obviously look into that at some point. I think if you're calling JMS a failure and a bust at this point, um, or at the minimum you want to bring in competition, I suspect that's a veteran and not another drafted rookie. I think you're
Yeah.
going to want to push him, and you're going to bring in somebody. And centers are cheap on the market. You don't pay a lot for them.
Yeah,
You
the
know,
Felicianos of whoever the next coach is, type of thing.
exactly. It's going to depend on who the coach is, what they want to implement on the O line, what kind of system they want to use, what kind of run game they want to develop. There are a lot of factors that figure into it. And for all I know, with the new coaching system, John Michael Schmitz might be an adequate player. He just doesn't look like he has NFL play strength. and that's a problem.
Mhm.
Like you don't like Bill Walsh talked about this. We didn't get into it, but centers don't have to be really like there's a I think they don't have to be giants, right? In fact, they're
Mhm.
when I say giants, I mean not the team, but like the
Hmm.
size. They don't have to be huge people. In fact, a lot of times centers are better off being a little smaller and a little bit more agile. You see a guy like Tyler Linderbaum. He's not a big guy, just athletics, and you usually are going to help your center with a guard. You want a guy who's smart. You want a guy who understands how to make line calls. You want a guy who recognizes defensive plays, and is just a good blocker, right? All you want is a good seal blocker, but he has to be strong enough even to at least just seal block, right? And open up run lanes and do the little things. Unfortunately, JMS is really struggling with like those basics. So I don't know if he'll be better with a new system or not, but I think a veteran would be more likely to come in to help him. But there are some guys in this class if they want to draft somebody.
Oh,
But like I said, watch for Jake Majors.
one other guy I'll mention as like a guy to look as a sleeper for the center position is Logan Jones. You gotta
Hmm.
love a good Iowa center, and he's being kind of overlooked. I don't know if he'll stay that way, but that was a freak list guy. That was a top 10 the freak list. He another guy who broke the squat record at Alabama or at Iowa. If you keep getting the Linderbaum and Wirfs, and now it's Logan Jones, really good athlete. Let's see, 153 10-yard split. He had like a 600-pound. He squatted 695, a Hawkeye record. So like, yeah, a guy to look out for, and he's had a really good year this year, production wise as well.
Awesome. I mean, I'm thinking back to the center discussion we had a couple of years ago, and I like JMS, but I was very much in the camp of like, hey, just wait a couple of rounds and draft Oluwatimi in the
Hmm.
third or the fourth. I think he's going to be adequately good at the NFL level, and he's finally getting a chance to play. Not spectacular, but he's what I expected. Like just solid. He doesn't hasn't. I think he's only given up like three total pressures, all season so far.
Yeah,
And like in three, I mean, he only played three full games with three pressures, no sacks. Like just solid in the run game. I mean, he's a good football player, and held down that position. That's all you want from your center. You want a guy who's not going to blow up the play and who makes good line calls. So I think that you want a guy like that. We'll see what the Giants do, but obviously disappointing that JMS can't even do the basics. It's very disappointing.
yeah,
All right,
yep.
that is our episode. Little house cleaning, housekeeping. Excuse me. Remember to
Trying to
house cleaning.
fire
I'm
me?
sorry. Yeah, he the Giant will continue without Monte Cristo going forward. Um, Please, if you haven't had a chance, like the episode on YouTube, retweet it if you get a chance, subscribe. We're on Apple, we're on Spotify, YouTube. You can find us on Twitter at Queens_guy for me, at MONTECRI5TO for Monty, or you can find us at the He's a Giant Pod page at He's a Giant Pod, spelled out completely. Uh, we're going to come back next week with the beginning of the quarterback review. So, for those of you who are willing to put up with it, we had a big viewership last year when we did quarterbacks. Obviously, it was a more exciting quarterback class, but still, the Giants are absolutely in the quarterback market, it seems like. So, we're going to start with our quarterback review starting next week. Tune in. And if you have any questions, reach out to us. We love getting messages from you guys. We appreciate all of you. Until then, go Giants.
Go Giants.